Hi, this is Kurt Farquhar, and we're with the Monday Morning Critic Podcast.
From executive producer Doris Kearns Goodwin.
Lincoln is having to deal with the most severe crisis that any American president has ever had to face.
Lincoln's strength was his ability to remake himself time and time again.
All men are created equal.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Abraham Lincoln.
The History Channel documentary event, Abraham Lincoln, Sunday, February 20th at 8, only on the History Channel.
My next guest is a movie and television composer, a songwriter, and a producer. Please welcome Kurt Farquhar. Kurt, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Hi, how you doing?
So, Kurt, I'm looking at your life, right? Grew up on the south side of Chicago. You're the second guest in a row who is one of 5 children. What was your house like growing up?
Busy but fun, you know.
Yeah.
I have my siblings were very fun and funny and very protective of their younger brother, and I'm the youngest of 5. And yeah, it was all pretty cool, you know, very loving family. My parents were just amazing people who invited everybody into our house and fed anybody that showed up. And
Yep.
they were it was really cool. It was a amazing place to come up.
Yeah, and growing up, those were always the best houses to be at, were the ones that fed you, you know, not being your parents. Oh boy, did I have friends like that. And
Yeah.
So are you the only one in your family that has or that is gifted with this musical ability, that has this musical background as far as developing it, right? You're in the early stages. Are you the only one that has that love for music?
Well, I always say that my brother Ralph, who's a television writer, actually,
Right.
I always tell everybody he loves music even more than I do. I mean, he listens to more of it. He just is very, very obsessed with it. That's his thing. My parents, my mom made sure that all of us played an instrument, you know, but she chose that instrument. She would decide what you're going to play and or whatnot. I remember I was supposed to actually play guitar, and I couldn't stand it. I didn't want to play guitar. I wanted to play drums, and she forced me to play guitar, which I just banged out rhythms on it. I used the neck of the guitar as a rest for my arm. And oddly enough, though, guitarists tell me I write really good guitar parts, but I don't. I can't figure that instrument out to save my life. You know, in terms of trying to play it.
Now, I bet you're thankful that mom does that, right? You're probably not in agreement with the instrument she chose, but I'm sure you're in agreement with the fact that she has her heart in the right place when it comes to music.
Yeah. I mean, she again, she didn't want us to actually be musicians. You know, you're just supposed to be sophisticated and be able to play piano at a cocktail party and tell funny jokes and stuff.
Right.
Supposed to be an attorney or a doctor or whatever. But no, there was no room for actually being a musician or anyone in the arts in my family, which is odd since so many of us ended up going in the arts or entertainment in some way.
Yeah, and you know, tell me about, and I hope I have this right, Kurt. Tell me about the high school you went to. Was that a musically dedicated high school as far as what the curriculum was? It was all music.
Yeah, CBS. It had a really amazing program at this. It was a huge high school that literally went 2 blocks one way and 2 blocks another way. It was huge school. Dick Buckus was a famous football player that came from the school, and Keena Turner. And they a wonderful woman, and I'm just blank, Miss Sweeney, started a music program with several really talented musicians, Joe Miller and Harold Bray, and they decided to turn the entire 3rd floor of this huge school into a music department.
Wow!
And whereas we had a over 200-piece marching band that was like famous around, a very well respected marching band. We had over 100-piece orchestra. We had a full choir department, and we had all of the English teachers and math teachers and history teachers we had particular ones that were dedicated to our department. So when we had performances out, or we were on any tour of any sort, they made sure that they arranged our those programs around that would be able to still keep up with everything else that we were doing, so
Right.
you could make up a test, you could make up whatever you had to, and it wasn't a real big stress. It wasn't something crazy that you had to go through to do it. And the bulk of our days were we did all of the English and history and everything, math and everything that everybody else did, but we had a huge part of our days which was on your instrument, which was music theory, music history, your specific performance group, whether it was orchestra or marching band or choir, and you had full jazz bands. There was literally multiple marching bands and multiple orchestras for the younger, newer group that was less experienced, and then there was the more sophisticated groups. Just like any sort of school that had a major athletics program, you'd have
Right.
your freshman, thing, and you'd have,
The fact that they dedicated though the entire floor to a music department. You see high schools all across
Yeah.
the U.S. even today that are all about athletics. You go to Texas, you go to
Mhm.
Florida, some of these places, it's all about sports. So to see somebody dedicate and to be quite honest, to be way ahead of their time in doing so,
Amazing.
yeah, so that's pretty
And
impressive.
in an inner city school. I mean, and people wondered how they got the money for it, or even, but Mrs. Sweeney was a pretty smart lady, and she found out that there was a rule in Chicago schools that if you weren't back in the 50s, all the schools had, or more schools had music programs and stuff. And as you went along, by the time I was in high school in I think 72 or whatever, that had fallen apart more, and she found out that if you weren't using your instruments, another school could come and take the instruments that you had that were just sitting there.
Wow.
So she literally went around the city taking musical instruments. And then what she did is she hired a guy that repaired instruments, from violins to trumpets to whatever, and had this person come in and set up shop, and there was literally on a daily basis repairing instruments. But also that was another class for us. You would come in and you would learn how to repair a violin, how to repair this instrument or that instrument. Yeah, that was
Wow.
also a part. I mean, this was like an all-inclusive, everything you could think about music programming inside an inner city, and that's how we got so many of the instruments.
What an amazing woman, huh?
Yeah. And the gentleman, she had some incredible gentlemen working with her there, Harold Bray and Joe Miller. Joe was a trumpet player, had been with Ray Charles' band. I mean, so these were like all these guys were very, very sophisticated musicians and very, very tough. Very tough.
Right.
Didn't take much. I remember a line that Joe said to the trumpet player, told the boy he couldn't blow. I said, boy, you can't blow that horn. You can't blow your way out of wet toilet paper.
That's a good line. Yeah. That is a good line. That is a good line.
I've used it a couple of times.
So let me ask you. So how do we go from where you are then to the Berklee College of Music in Boston? And I went to Northeastern, so I've said this before, right next door, pretty much. How did you come to choose Berklee, and just whatever you want to say about that?
Yeah. First of all, I just did Berkeley in one of the summer programs, and I planned on going there further in the after graduating either there or Juilliard afterwards. But I became really good friends with a couple of students that were French, and they were saying, "Well, why would you go to Juilliard? You know, it's this when you could go to the Versailles Conservatory or Paris Conservatory there." You know, national schools, and if you can get in, it didn't cost really, you know. And I was like, never thought of anything like that. And uh, I decided to audition to get into Versailles. I got in, and I went there. And based on the price of Juilliard and everything, my dad was really praying that I was actually as good as I said I was.
So, and then you also Eastern Illinois is sprinkled in there too, right?
Yeah, when I came back from Europe, I went to study specifically with Johnny Lee Lane. He's one of the great percussion teachers in the country, and he was a direct musical descendant of Frank Arsenault, and I went to study with this guy. I mean, he's just an amazing uh, percussion teacher and core style drumming. And I was really into Billy Cobham at that point, and I realized that he did a lot of the core style drumming, and I really wanted to study that heavily. But mainly just overall classical percussion was my biggest push at that time.
Any homesickness going to Europe? Missing family?
Uh, yeah, you know, you miss family and friends. But you know, I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I got to tell you, I couldn't wait to get out of there. I was counting down the days, and I never forget getting on the bus, which we used to call the Big Green Monster, and I got off it for the last time and patted it on the butt and said, "Never again. You'll never see me again." and
And goodbye
yeah,
to that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you know, it was interesting being able to I had just the luck of all lucks. My friend Alain Jolie, it was he and wonderful keyboardist and percussionist Philippe Sayes who had suggested that I go there. And Alain, when I moved there, I was staying with his family for a little while, and then his mother helped Alon and I get an apartment together in Paris that was very close to the Versailles Conservatory, and it was such a different time. You know, it wasn't like if I was there right now, and if my kid was there now, and he needed some more money, he could take a bank card, go put it in any bank card slot, get cash right then. I mean, you couldn't. I had to let my parents know a month before that I needed money. They couldn't rent me instruments. It was like she would, Mrs. Jolie would do this. Their family kind of took care of me and made me feel at home. They did things for me that you couldn't imagine that somebody would do just because their child said he met this kid in Boston the year before. Uh, Absolutely phenomenal, and those people changed my life and changed how I think of everybody. I mean, you think of being a young African American from Chicago in the 50s, 60s, and early 70s to go there, and this white family took me in like I was theirs. They took care of me. They respected me. They treated me like I was their own, and it's just pretty amazing thing when you think.
Yeah, yeah. It
Pretty
sounds like
amazing.
it, and it sounds like it's really stuck with you over the years too. That
Oh yeah,
people open their hearts up like that. That's pretty
yeah,
fantastic. Yeah, that's pretty fantastic.
it's
You know,
amazing.
yeah, and your life is filled with so much, right? And I've heard you say this on other interviews, and I think there's more to it than just the statement itself, right? You hear the statement, and people are like, "Wow," you know. But on two different occasions, you find yourself homeless. But I want to. So I feel like when people hear that, they can make judgments, they can kind of throw things out there, but there's so much more to that. Having studied your life and researched your life, it's not just that statement. There's stuff behind it. There's things that happen. It's not the way, people make judgments on that, but it's not how it sounds. There's more to that story.
Much more complicated.
Yes, it's much more complicated. So, and however you want to say it, tell me about how that happened, and whatever you want to say, Kurt. And we can move on after that.
Yeah, well, it was a time in my life where, when things started changing and altering, and not for the better, I don't think that I handled it all the best.
Right.
And I believe that as a result of what I did, I ended up in difficult circumstances. I never thought it would sustain as long as it did. At no point did I think a month later I would still not have a place to stay, or 2 months later, or 6 months later, I crash on a friend's couch for a second, or this, that, and the other. I didn't, and when it was over a year with it, I didn't. It seemed like forever, and then it seemed like a moment. But the thing that I took from it that was most important was, who was I going to be? That's the biggest thing that I learned and took from the whole thing. I decided who I was going to be, how I was going to change, what I could do about me, because I can't do anything about anything else.
Right.
I can decide. I can decide how I now respond to things. I'd say I was used to always, doing a lot of walking on the streets. I can tell you how many times I almost got hit by a car, and I would be jumping out of the way, saying, "Kid with a future, kid with a future."
Yeah.
I totally believe that. I totally believe that that there was something else out there for me. I did not think that this was something that would endure. And when you look back at it, people talk about it like it's a big deal. I think people have gone through a lot way worse than what I did.
Mm.
I did have times where I could call somebody and sleep on their couch for a while. Most people, very few people, knew that I was homeless at the time. But I remember talking with my family after I gotten off the streets and stuff. And one of the ways I got off was I became a maid, live-in maid, and cook. They said you could get a room for a free room for cooking and light cleaning. And so I became this maid, and I said, well, I cook really well. So I cooking and cleaning for this gentleman up in living up in Laurel Canyon. And people would drop me off at home there. And never once did anybody ask or question the fact that I never asked them in.
Right.
Just really, kind of remarkable, but whatever.
Right.
They just said, "Oh, that Kurt always lands on his feet." Kurt was up there cooking and cleaning. Kurt had to get home by 3 so he could get dinner on the table by 5:30. When my mom passed away, I was there cooking and cleaning and being a maid. And when I remember, there was a window I could crawl out to and sit on the roof. And I remember it was raining, pouring raining. And all I thought was, my mom had died. And she had done all of the stuff for me, her and my dad, for me to get to go to school in Europe, and for me to study and do all the things I could do. And all I've done is ended up being a maid, cooking and cleaning right now, which isn't a bad thing.
Right.
Not a disrespectful thing. At least she was making a buck.
Sure.
But I thought that I was supposed to do better. And it just broke my heart that that's where I was. And that was what my life was. But I just decided, even while going through that, that I was going to do things to try to get myself back together. That I was steadily trying to step up, steadily trying to make something else happen, make something else occur. Not to wallow in it,
Right.
to use it as this is the point that we jump off from and we go on to someplace else. And I did. I worked really hard for a long, long time to try to get something else to happen.
Kurt, do you think, I think you pretty much just said this, but I want to make it a point. Do you think your mom's passing provided that moment of clarity for yourself as far as, you know what, these people have really worked their entire lives to make sure I was in a better place? Was it that simple, or was it more than just your mom's passing? Do you see what I'm saying?
I assure you, sleeping with your head on the pavement gives you a certain amount of inspiration.
Yeah.
That was that's not a funny thing.
Yeah.
It's not a fun thing. I drive through the city and I see people now. I see people hanging out around some of the same areas that I did. Matter of fact, I used to sleep off of Melrose. There was a building. I think it was an architectural design building near Melrose and Sycamore, I believe, and it had a long hallway that must have been 30, 40 feet in. Okay,
Right.
there was no roof above it, but there was walls on both sides, and so I could go up in there, and people wouldn't have to see me on the street. And now I remember not long after that they put a gate across the front of it. So I've always believed that was the Kurt Farquhar Memorial Gate. And not having anybody else walk up in here.
But you also tell I mean, we're not making light of your homelessness, but you have to like laugh at things like, right, when you look back at, but there's a great story that you told where you used to go apartment hunting and leave the window open.
Yes.
And then when you were done apartment hunting, you'd climb through the window and spend the night at some of these places, right? So
I just desperately, there's always someplace with carpet. I just wanted to sleep on a carpet, to not be on stone or grass or a bench or something. I wanted to just the comfort of an apartment, the comfort of it being warm was important to me. And I would always look and I'd leave a little latched in. I'd only ever stay one night and I'd lock the door behind me after the next day. And that was a big deal. But I always tried to keep myself clean when I was homeless. People would see me sometimes, they didn't realize, that I was just walking the streets, hey, I saw you walking,
Yeah,
you did.
In your life, Kurt, it almost seems like obviously you have this gift for music and what you do, but it's almost like you have two stories, right? Your professional story and then the life you've lived. I feel like both would make phenomenal movies, right? I mean, like just what you've gone through and the fact that you're so open about it. I mean, people listen to it, and you're right. I mean, people kind of throw like, they have this attachment of what they think homelessness is, but there's so much. It's just not having a home. It could be at a friend's house. It could be, the creative ways you found, to handle it. I mean, it's.
I ask anybody to experience and see what it's like to not have keys to a place.
Yeah, I mean, that's no joke.
And come back and see what it means to you. See if you start parsing what it is or isn't at that point. What it was is I had no keys to any place. I had no place that mail came.
It's weird when you say it like that. It's weird to process. You're right.
Yeah, there were no neighbors, and there, just the personal lack of you don't respect yourself very much that this happened, and people want to think that it's always some big thing that happened. There was a number of things that happened, and I freely admit that I didn't do everything well,
Right.
Of course, if I did everything well, then maybe that wouldn't have happened. Maybe it would have, but maybe it wouldn't have. It
Right.
probably wouldn't have.
Right.
You know, I think pride in not wanting to say anything to anybody, that this things were going on, that things were beyond my control. Human beings do not have a problem doing the the most useful thing that sometimes can ever be for them, which is to just bow yourself and ask for help.
Right.
I am here to tell you, uh, uh, many decades from the time of being homeless, that even today I have to bow myself and ask for help from time to time. I have cadres of people that I can ask for help before I start winding down the toilet backwards.
Right. Right.
Ask for help in your career. Everyone's this vision of getting everything on their own. And I did it myself, and I'm gonna beat my chest. Ain't nobody did nothing on your own. You know, is the when they said go west, young man, go west. Nobody just hopped on a horse and just ran across the country. You got people together. You got somebody who could guide you. You got somebody who could take care of horses, and you got a blacksmith. You got somebody that could farm and grow something once you got there. You got you had a whole wagon train. You got somebody who could cook. You got somebody who could teach kids and help set up a school when you got there. There's all of these things that people did and as a group and together, and you move out, and you need that help, each one depending on each other. Well, that's the same thing that's happening and is necessary right now to get through this business that we're doing. You know, this craft is a business, and we have to understand that it is, no matter what. Yes, you can get a helping hand, but I can help you with a hand up right now, but you are going to have to go in there and write that music every week.
Right.
You're going to have to go and do whatever it is that I helped you get into.
Right.
I can't do it for you, but to accept some help for something, which is why I think it's important to accept the help, and I think it's important to give the help. I, on a daily basis, am a walking I am a walking geez, I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought. I try to help every day. That's what I do. I try to walk up. The thing is you don't have to have a big organization. You don't have to have this or that or the other. Sometimes all you have to do is look to the person next to you. People are hurting that you have no idea that it is happening to them.
Right.
People are hurting and you have no idea. I was homeless and I was literally having to cook and clean and wash floors and this, that, and the other just to get through. And nobody noticed even after dropping me off at said home.
Wow.
Why in the world would anybody think that I could have lived in that place in any other capacity at that time?
Right. No, that's such a great point.
No, and I was never asked.
Yeah. That's unbelievable. And
that's just the way it is. And I think I kept the people who might have helped asked away. So it's a two-way street. I'm not blaming anybody for not asking me. I think it's just as stupid that I just wouldn't say. My family found out that I've been cooking because we were at a restaurant one time, and there's this interesting stir fry dish, and I said, "Oh, I know how to do that." I said, how the heck do you know how to do that? Well, I think I learned it in this book when I was cooking for this family up in Laurel Canyon. I mean, what? You would hold it, roll back. What?
Hey, so I have to ask you, Kurt, what is, I mean, cooking is one of my, I'm always working on it. I am not a good cook. My wife rarely eats anything I make. What is your best dish or dish that you consider your go-to?
I don't know. I do a lot of different things. I do a wonderful poached sea bass
It's making me
and
hungry already.
yeah, so with just various herbs, and I do the most killer seafood gumbo. That I mean, it's my family's known for. My dad passed the recipe down to me, and yeah, the gumbo is real. The gumbo is real. You
Yeah.
come around on Christmas, I get you some gumbo.
I'm gonna take you up on that.
Yeah.
So I want to get into your professional life here. I'm looking at a poster behind you, the Proud Family, currently on Disney Plus, I believe, if I'm correct.
Yes. Yes.
We're gonna
Proud
get
Family,
into
louder and prouder.
yes, and it's been really, really well received. Before I
Yes.
get into your professional, I have one quick question. So I'm a person, and I feel like this is a lost art. Like I have always loved. I mean, I love film composers. They're some of my favorite guests, right? Including Kurt,
Hmm.
and everything you've done. Um, there's so many. I feel like in the decade in the last few years of streaming, we've lost for the most part, not all. We've lost for the most part the art of the intro to a show, right? I can
Hmm.
think of like The Fall Guy, Hill Street Blues, Good Times, Different Strokes, Sanford and Son, The Jeffersons, on and on and on. I keep going on and on. I almost feel like they were works of art before you got into the great shows, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What
Sure.
do you consider to be one of the greatest introductions to a television show? Because your IMDb as far as television go and films, but television I'm not
Television.
is your strong point. But like,
Yeah.
what do you think? What's one of the best music or intros you've seen in the history of television in your opinion?
Uh, uh, I'll tell you one of my favorites recently. It was the theme to Westworld. I thought was brilliant.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
I just I thought that the whole score was the first season score was stunning,
Mm.
but I could not get that thing out of my head for quite some time, and I just thought uh, fabulous, fabulous job in terms of the song, more song type intro theme songs. Wow. This is hard because I can never remember the name of anything, but um, I love I love the um, mm, that's not more of a song one. I like Mash theme song.
Oh,
That was
Mash is
like a-
good. That's a good one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of my favorites. Uh, I really liked oh goodness. I like the theme song to One on One. That was cute. A lot of people think that I wrote that, but I did not.
Right.
I didn't come into like the second season or so, and I just thought that they did a really really good job with that theme song.
Yeah, and your filmography, but for those listening is or watching, is absolutely enormous. I won't go through all of it. Just to highlight a few, we talked about Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, Black Lightning, The King of Queens. Great job there. Again, I could go on and read about half hours worth of your credits, but one is more unbelievable than the next. But I have to say, and we're going to talk a little about this, but Abraham Lincoln for me, one of your best, just because I'm a huge documentary guy, and the music there
Thank
was just
you.
flawless. It was beautiful.
Oh, thank you. You know that just came out recently, and we were. I was so proud to get a chance to do that. It's not a lot of African American composers have had that honor of writing something. But I thought it was how apropos for the president who freed the slaves,
Right?
descendant of slaves, to actually write some music for it it was a pretty cool thing. It was a brilliant piece. The director Malcolm Benville.
Who's been a guest on my show, Kurt?
Oh wow! Yeah,
Yeah, great
he
guy.
is one
Great.
brilliant and
Yep.
wonderful guy.
Yep.
He's a stunning person to work with and sit and talk with. His passion for this project knew no bounds. I mean, he was there to do anything it took to make it right, and so therefore we connected really well together. And he had such a powerful vision, and he got me all swept up in it, and I was ready to do whatever he needed to make it. So I'm make it special, and I'm really really glad that you liked it. It was it's a score that I'm particularly proud of.
No, I didn't like it. I loved it. I loved it.
Oh,
Oh yeah, yeah, and I
dude.
yeah, he did Grant too. I just feel like
Yes.
you bring up a great point. I mean, I was trying to in my mind because I think I know more about movie composers than the average fan. I think I dedicated my life to just appreciating. But you bring up a good point, right? So I was trying to think of the African American movie or television composers that I could name without looking up. Just quick. Can I do it? And I got to four, and I'm like, is this list a little light? Like, I mean, like Terrence Blanchard, Chris Bowers, I had Quincy Jones. There was others. Do you feel like African American composers are seeing enough work? I mean, you have a super strong background in television, but you could handle a Marvel movie. You can handle one of these from your work. Evidence is Lincoln alone. Watch anybody. The first of the three is free on History Channel. You can watch it for free. Listen to that and tell me that you couldn't handle a top shelf movie. Do you feel like those opportunities? And I don't want to put you in a bad spot, so don't. If you want to pass, you can pass too. But part of me is like, I mean, is it because to some degree it's the same situation with female composers, but
Yeah.
I feel like African American composers are, I don't know. There's tons of very talented musicians. I don't think I'm seeing enough of.
Well, first things first is that I did 22 television series and movies just in the last 12 months alone.
Wow.
I don't get to complain.
Right.
I'm, as you've noted, I my list of shows that I've been fortunate enough to work on. We could be talking about for the next hour or two.
We could have our own documentary on your work. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I don't get to complain. I have done extraordinarily well. Are people missing something in that their thinking has them go to this one place with me? Sure. I'm working on a. If you think that the Lincoln documentary showed a side of me that people don't necessarily see all the time, and Malcolm and took and the History Channel took a risk on me doing that. I'm doing a show on Netflix called First Kill, and it's from a YA book, young adult book that about vampires, and there's a young love affair between which I can't give too much away about it.
No,
but,
I got it. Yeah, I got it.
But at any rate, there is nothing about that says that I should have done that show. But I assure you, when folks see this, if folks aren't talking about this music, along with this show, I will be shocked, because they allowed me to do something different. And I've always told producers, I said, look, if you want to, they say they want to do something different. I said, how different you want to get? I'll get you kicked off TV. How far you want to go? We'll be real here. I said, if you want to get something different, there's two ways of doing it. Get somebody either so new that they don't know any better, or someone has been long enough in the saddle that they don't give a fuck. I'm one and not the other.
Yeah.
I still have such passion for it, and I'm not stuck in one particular thing. Someone had asked me what or who, which artists you connect with or see yourself as more, and I said more of a David Bowie. If you look at David Bowie and in his career, you were always wondering what was he going to be next.
Yeah, interesting.
You were always checking. Hey, he was going to look different. He was going to sound different. He went from art rock to R&B dance music. I mean, it's a wide swatch of what this man has done. I see myself as that person that you would not know that the same guy that did Lincoln, did did King of Queens,
You're right. Right.
who did Moesha, who did Stitchers, who does Real Husbands of Hollywood, who on the same day would go over and do Black Lightning. You you I like to change and morph and be directed by the project itself
Yeah.
and the people behind it. For all of my musical brilliance and anybody else's, for that matter, all rolled up together,
Right.
every single one of these showrunners and directors has lived with this project. This project has been a part of their soul for not just months, but in most cases years. And so for us to have the arrogance to come in and think that, okay, now I'm here, Mr. Composer is here, and I'm going to fix all of this. I'm going to be the reason why this all only works.
Right.
Well, no, it's about it's a collaboration. We're all kind of moving and dancing together. And I feel myself as a cog in that wheel. I see of someone else's vision.
Right.
Of someone else's vision. This isn't a job for everybody. I mean, I know guys that say, hold it, I just want to do what I want to do. Well, then don't be a television or film composer.
Right.
Because
right.
Our vision, as much as it can fit within his or her vision, because they were here first. They were here dance. I've always felt like my job is to be their support in a most profound way, because you sit here with a writer, and in television most of the showrunners are the head writer, and so it's a person who's probably been sitting in a small room, with his or her special drink, coffee or chai tea or whatever it is that they're having, and it has to be, everything has to be set just the right place, and especially in the guy's case, they might have been wearing the same jeans for the last 6 to 8 months to pump this thing out, this story out, and then all of a sudden, and then they get that lovely pimp slap that you get when you have to go out there and actually sell this project, and then, oh boy, that's a lot of fun. Let's go for that. I'll have another one of those, and after you get the luck of something actually getting on, then they're barraged with, they have a staff over 250 people work on a sitcom alone,
right?
300 on an hour-long dramatic series, and every last one of these, the answer to the questions that come up in all those departments come to him. All of a sudden, this guy who's been sitting in the same pants for freaking 8 months, 8 years ago, is still now has somebody standing in front of him say, so if she wore this dress and it went with this, and maybe she should have this sash because that's what this character would have, and blah, blah, blah. And I know they must be thinking inside their head, have you seen me dress? But at the same time, they have to make that final decision. And then they go through the show, and they come to music. And they're, there's guys and gals that are they have their own particular taste with it, and so that their own particular taste may not have anything to do with what they wrote.
Right.
You know?
Right.
How do you make this process a little bit easier for you? And without your elitist musician, music school composer crap getting all over it, how do you have a conversation with them and draw out of them what might be the direction that this show needs to go sonically?
Right.
What would it sound like if they heard music in their head the way I have since I was 3 years old? If I am such a musical genius, then maybe I might be able to communicate a little bit better with them, especially if I am not spending a whole bunch of time looking down my nose at anybody.
Right. Right.
In the process.
Yeah, as we were talking about
Well,
Lincoln,
I went on a ramble. I'm sorry about
no,
that.
you no, I love.
I know you asked me a question about Pop Tarts, and somehow I got there.
So you score this wonderful piece of Lincoln, right? And I'm a big documentary guy, and music and documentaries, the ones especially that I love on the History Channel, really
Mhm.
fuel the project. Was scoring Lincoln the same? This I have to believe it's a little different than scoring. Let's just say because I'm looking at it, the Proud Family. It's a different story. It's a different, or are they the same? Maybe I'm just making assumptions, but I feel like it's different.
Yeah, vastly different. I was doing them both. I actually was doing them both at the same time, and
Wow.
quite often going directly from one session to the other. And I tell you, vastly different. I put how I separate the sound of shows. I make a lot of rules for myself,
Right.
where you can't use this sound, or you can't use that, or there are certain elements of music making that I would tie behind my back and make sure that I wouldn't pull it out. And the sound of Lincoln was a special one for me. Uh, uh, not all of it wasn't huge orchestral. Most of it, as you noticed, was smaller and just more intimate. But it was a very intimate story, especially in the early years.
Absolutely.
Him growing up, and there was so much that you had to. I wanted people to feel something, a little bit more, not just to be an intellectual exercise, as a documentary, but something that you felt something special about this man's very, very humbling life. I mean, my my years on the streets, trust me, there was a convenience mart right down the street. He was left in the woods. He was literally left in the woods his with his sister.
Early on, yeah.
Really, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I don't even think he was more than 12, at
Right.
the time. This is remarkable that you came through what he came through, and to rise up to where he did. I mean, that's
And then your music just drives it along, and it's just such powerful stuff that I'm telling you, for those who, if you don't get History Channel because YouTube TV doesn't have it, the first of the 3 episodes is available free. I challenge people, please go watch this. It's just so beautifully and wonderfully done. But I have to believe, is there pressure on your end though, Kurt? Right, because you mentioned people involved with the project. There's a ton of people involved. You're talking about who is perhaps the most legendary historical figure in the history of our country, or not one of the top 3 or 5. Do you feel pressure in any way to do him justice, to the people that brought
yeah.
you on board justice? Is there pressure there?
D, all of the above. I knew the answer to that one. Yeah, it was. I'm a bit of a history buff myself, and so it felt weighty and important to me.
Yeah.
I was really doing everything I could to get it right, and if you ever got off course, I know Malcolm would help me get back on. I could talk with him, and he he'd always say, "It's Lincoln, Kurt. That's the big one, right? It's the big one, right?" I love that, and yeah, it is the big one, and to do it in the way that he did, where it's semi a movie. You're looking at it from the first shots. It's not just some reenactments. You feel like you're inside a movie, and then all of a sudden people start talking,
Right.
over it, like like a narrator, and I said, "Oh," and then you start seeing there's these talking heads like that are
Barack
being interviewed.
Obama, you have all these historians, professors. I mean, it's
Oh
great.
my goodness! I was in the car taking one of my kids to school when Malcolm told me. He said, "We got it. We got the big one." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Barack Obama.
Wow.
He's gonna start filming his parts in another week. So you got more stuff coming." And my son was who was Cayman, who was 14, was taking a freshman in high school, and he said, "You're going to be doing Barack Obama?" I said, Yeah, apparently so. So
Wow.
for one brief moment in my career, my child was impressed with me.
Yeah. Well, what? The other 500 shows you did weren't impressive enough to your son?
I got a hard crew over here. My youngest son is an amazing artist,
Yeah.
and he wants to be a comic artist. He wants to work for Marvel. He wants to work for Disney, and but I'm sorry, he's not a DC guy, and he says, and I got Black Lightning, and it was DC, and he just told me, "You- traitor, traitor, I'll never watch that, traitor."
That's great. That is great. Is it refreshing to have projects like Lincoln, right, Kurt, to take you out? I mean, not that you ever get complacent. I'm not saying that, but because it's so much different than everything else. And again, we talked about why it's so powerful. Is it refreshing to get changed? You mentioned David Bowie earlier, right? But he could do this, he could do that.
Yeah.
He was all over the map. I got to believe the point you were making, and it's very true, is you're the composition equivalent as far as your not being pigeonholed in one
Yes.
place. That's the point you were making. So these projects like this wonderful Project Lincoln are refreshing, I would have to imagine.
Yeah, it's I was never tired, never bored, and when I walked in and got a chance to work on that, each project does that for the other.
Right.
Folks would ask me many times about writing on so many different projects. Do you get writer's block? Do you this, that, and the other? I said, oh, it really doesn't work that way. I said, you see, nobody would ever come up to Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime and say, "Hey, Arnold, does lifting all that weight make you weaker?" No, lifting more makes me stronger. I write more, it makes me stronger. Writing all these different things makes me, appreciate something else. It makes me see something in another point of view, and one piece, no matter what it is a relief and a release from what else I was doing. So I might be working on in literally in the same time we were doing Lincoln, we were doing Proud Family. I would go to the neighborhood and swing back around to the Sacrificers, and and it was fun. It was invigorating, and when I would just be okay, I'm getting up to here at with one way of thinking, I'd have this other thing that I was forced to have to think about,
Right.
and that's fun. That's a great thing, and I feel so privileged to do it, and it gives me the energy to write even more. It's because
Right.
I did have that relief, I did have that release to
Mhm.
go and do something. I'm doing. I'm writing music, and this kid is in the backwoods of America at that time, just downtrodden and poor and just and not knowing when his dad was in back. It's not like he was getting calls every other night or every night.
Right.
It wasn't like there was a convenient mart down the street. It wasn't like that. I mean, there's that there was a lot of weight to what was going on there. So, and just when I would, as any human being would be, after a certain amount of being dug in on that, to go and laugh with the Proud Family for a second, was
Yeah.
which was, and Lincoln was such, you would be very insular and scared to sometimes to move one way or another too much. It just had to be very subtle, slow movements, and then go to Proud Family. It's like, chick, 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 and you're
Yeah.
changing here and shifting there, and boom, 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 and all of these different styles that make it up. It was definitely a relief from what I was doing, from the darkness of what we had to do with a project like Lincoln.
Two last things. There's a great photo of you. I don't know when it was taken, maybe last couple of years, where you're under the billboard of the neighborhood where you used to be, where you were homeless at the time, and you're
Yes.
smiling from ear to ear. I have to say, if anything I looked at with your life, and there was so many fantastic things, that one made me smile the most. That one made me happiest to see.
Well, it made me smile. I had been doing an interview, and we were walking along the street there, and just that thought that somebody could come that far. That I was literally walking these streets with no place to go, and now I'm racing through these streets trying to get to my next job, and on that same street that I was just marking time. Now, one of those billboards that we all dream of and see from wherever we come from, places like Chicago and Poughkeepsie and Atlanta and wherever, and we come here and we all want to see those billboards. We all want to see, that's those are the people that have made it, and it's so big. And I'm looking there and saying, wow. And they had just announced that show was the number one new show, new comedy on television. And I thought, only here, you really can't make this up. Only here. It's just amazing that I have an opportunity, that's why I give it my all every moment. So folks have asked me, how do you get so many hit shows? And I said, what are you doing to make all of this happen? I said, well, I don't know much, but I said, one of the main things I do is is that I only work for Steven Spielberg, which everybody finds, I don't know about that one, brother. I said, well, whenever my head writer, my producer, my director walks in the room, I see Steven Spielberg and act accordingly.
Yeah.
If Steven Spielberg was here saying that, oh, guys, it's going to be a late night tonight, it's going to be pretty darn late, I doubt that many of us would even remember to call our friends or family that we were going to be hooking up with later to tell them that you're not going to make it. Right. I am sitting here. I've got another opportunity to spend more minutes working on Steven Spielberg's project. If you approach everyone like that, because we don't know what the big one is. Right. We don't know what the big shows are. We can guess as much as we want to.
Right.
But I say, put your whole heart into all of it, or don't do this.
Right.
There aren't as many people begging you to do it as there are people begging to do it.
No, that is such a great point, because there's actors. I mean, I'm not going to mention names, but there's actors out there that take roles just to get the check and be done with it, right? And I can think of one very specific name. But, it's like, if they didn't treat it like that, if they did treat it like, you know what, this project, we do it right, it could be one of those things we never expected. That is such a great point, Kurt. Yeah. Such a great point. Kurt, what's left? What's out there for you? You mentioned a project on Netflix. What else can you tell us about what's ahead for you?
Oh, goodness. Not a lot that I can talk about as I'm under a million and one NDAs, but there are a number of really special projects for people to look forward to, and I'll be announcing over the next few months as I'm allowed to do more of that. But there's a lot of fun stuff to come.
Kurt, you're a good man, and I absolutely love your work. And thank you for taking time to be on the podcast today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Wow, boy, you were well researched.
Well, it helps when you have somebody that's worthy of it, and I appreciate it, because it's just when I just talk to people like you. I mean, your story is very much different than a lot of others. It's just refreshing. I don't know. I like to just talk to people, and everyone's had their moments, and I don't know. It's just fun for me. I love it. I love it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. I love as we have a few more things coming up, I'd like to talk to you about those.
Oh, open invitation anytime, my friend, and maybe over some sea bass.
Hey, that's right. Or gumbo.